Hello, everybody. Today we are doing another episode of the recovery mindset, and this one is a little bit about the pressure outside of the gym and who you are as a person. So, with me today, I have Matt from Flashpoint Performance in Greenville.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on here. Yeah, I mean, this is a awesome topic. It's something I've always been fascinated by. I can't wait to hear your take on it and kind of we kind of delve into it. But I guess the first thing that I'm curious about is just when it comes to balancing school training. I mean, today's day and age, there's so much that goes into what is involved in being a student athlete, specifically in college. But I guess what is your typical day and life like as an athlete?
I would wake up and get ready, and then I would go to the gym and I would eat something like from our fridge for breakfast, and then I would get some treatment done before practice, and then practice for 3.5, 4 hours. Sometimes we would go to weights after practice, and then I just go to my daily classes and go home, eat dinner, do my homework, and go to sleep and do it all again the next day.
Rinse and repeat. That's a lot.
Okay. Yes.
Is there times with that it was just even more than others for you? Like timing the
Um,
season?
I think like it was like more, it was like harder to get up
Yeah,
and do
no worries.
that every day. Oh yeah. Especially during preseason. I mean, you're doing the same thing every day. And it gets really tough because like each day gets even harder. Like with like routines and like practices and stuff too. So yeah,
Now,
it's
how did that go for you with like managing school, social life, and sports? Because I mean, I don't know, for me, I when I did it, I just couldn't manage the two. With my worst semester for academics was when I was playing football.
yeah, I think for me, managing school was kind of easy. I don't know how I really got through with it. I was either the person who waited and just got it done like late, or I would do it like weeks in advance because I would like randomly get this like jolt to do my homework for some reason. I don't know. But I would always get it done. Like, I don't think I ever turned in anything late, um, which was really cool because I was just like, I always got that stuff done on time. And I think like the bigger thing to kind of juggle with my social life. I was like a more of a homebody anyways. So like getting myself to go out even when I had homework and stuff like that was harder for me for sure.
It's almost like that introvert versus extrovert part of it. I think we talked about when we
Uh,
first met even.
yeah, absolutely.
So you almost feel like you push that social life side to the side.
Yeah, I definitely pushed my social life aside for sure. Like
So funny.
there was a lot of things I just didn't do because I had stuff to do probably.
Hey, at least you have your priorities in check.
Yeah, that or it was just laying in my bed because I was tired. So.
That's fair. I mean, it is kind of funny hearing that because you think about it. I mean, I think it was two podcasts ago we were talking about how you almost fed off the energy in the crowd, but you're not an extrovert, so I would almost expect an extrovert to get that energy, not the other way around.
I think it's athletics in general that feeds off of the crowd like that, though. Like, yes, I'm
That's
an
true.
extrovert or an introvert for sure, but like when you're on the beam, you kind of like, or like in the middle of a crowd, it's kind of just like you got to be there. You have no choice. So
Pressure's on.
yeah.
Um, what about so I remember I think it was like last week you said this, you're always multitasking, but do you feel like having to do all these things forces you to always be multitasking?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I think my brain is always going a million miles a minute. Like even now, like with my job and like everything else that I'm doing, like and not being an athlete anymore, my brain is still going about a million miles a minute. Being a student athlete, for sure. Like you have so many things to juggle with practice and weights, your friends from home, your parents, your like school, social life, like all of that. It gets to a lot. It gets to a point where it gets really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think like it's almost like a superpower in some ways because it may be a lot and but then also it allows it so you can like it almost you can do more than other people is what I feel like as an athlete. And I don't know if that's been your experience too.
Yeah, I definitely think I'm more, I guess I'm better at time managing, I would say. But I guess that's, I mean, yeah. I think I'm just better at being like, if I'm sitting for too long, or like I have a day where I can't do anything, or like I have nothing planned, I have to do something. Like I can't just sit around and do nothing. So,
I mean, that's definitely, yeah, I definitely find that even for me, like I'm more removed, but if I'm not doing too much, it's almost like, what the heck is the point of it?
yeah, exactly.
What about, I guess for you, like, did you almost feel like you had to push everything aside for sports? Like, did you, obviously you don't love, you didn't like the going out socially, but even the student life, whether it was, I mean, I know for me, like when I was an athlete, or when I was in the student, I was athletes at action. I was in a lot of different groups and clubs. Did you almost feel like athletics took that away from you being able to try those other things, or were you able to find time for that?
I think I really only found time for, and I didn't even find enough time for it, for one group. But I think athletics is like, when you're an athlete, you're just in like the athletics part. And there's some athletes that do go out and like venture out and do different groups. But for me, it was too much. It was way too hard. I enjoyed my Saturdays and Sundays not doing anything. So
I definitely remember those days.
yeah,
Yeah, it's funny how like I mean, you think people think about athletes and they always think like just the competing part, but they forget like as a whole, like we have to do so much more that goes into it, whether it's just, and in today's age with NIL, I'm sure it's even crazier, but it's crazy how little people really know about that. Um,
yeah.
I guess when it comes to, I know you keep talking about perfection, and but did you almost feel like by being an athlete and especially in a sport like gymnastics where you are judged literally to a T, did that make you almost like a perfectionist? I think I might have heard you say this in your other podcasts a little bit. Does that translate to everything?
I no. To be honest, no. I think it translated a lot to gymnastics and school. But like other than that in my life, like I think my like room, like it could definitely be a little more organized. Like it's not bad, it's just could be more organized. And if I was like genuinely a perfectionist, then it would be like perfect to a T. I'd be dusting every day. So I don't think that it translates too much. It only translated on things that I needed to perform well on, which was gymnastics and school.
Hey, those are things that matter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What about, I guess, the social pressures of being an athlete? I mean, this part I've always been fascinated by. I mean, I don't, I think it depends on the athlete and the person a little bit. But did you ever feel like you had either a bullseye on your back or you had a pressure of holding, like having an image because you were a Clemson gymnast and even at Utah State?
Yeah, we had rules that we had to follow, which were like rules that were good for us. Like it was just like things that you should do without really even them being needed to be rules. But we had them, and that like kept us to holding up the standard of, you're wearing the paw, you're representing the, Clemson Tigers. So you need to act a certain way. You need to, I don't need to go into public looking like I'm about to go out to dinner or something like that, but like just be cautious of what you're saying and where you are, and because you never know who's around you really. Like I remember I was in my like pajamas at Marshall's one day, and this mom was like, "Oh my gosh, are you on the gymnastics team?" And I was like, "Oh no, yes I am." So
Probably mortified.
it's just, yeah, it's just being aware of like your surroundings, and holding up just an upstanding citizen, I guess.
Did you ever feel like you that like do you feel like that translates even now to like you now that you are done like it's like still like almost a pressure to you?
Yeah, I think it created like the like quote unquote rules we had to follow were just things that you should really do to just, I don't
Be a good
know,
person
like
almost.
yeah, exactly. So it's like it's it's just like life lessons, I guess, that I learned instead of like really like just rules. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. As I was getting ready for this, I was thinking about how like I was with a client and I was like, man, I'm still probably thinking about this way too much the way that I probably did when I was playing sports.
Yeah.
Um, what about like, did you feel like you needed to take a step away from that ever? Like, I know we talked a lot about like those mental health breaks, but did even that pressure alone just make you like, gosh, I need a break. I need to turn my head off and get away from this.
Yeah, I think it can all get to being a lot, being an athlete, being a student, it can all be a lot. And so, not really maybe like the social pressures, I didn't feel that way, but just like in general, being an athlete, you for sure need to find time to figure out how to switch your brain off at least a little bit.
I can definitely say that. I mean, obviously, this weekend we saw how much even my daughter was obsessed with
Yeah, that was so
it.
fun. Yes.
So how about, I guess, like from the standpoint of having to take a back seat from your team? Like, did you feel like individually you almost had to sometimes like just step back and not have to even take time for yourself?
You mean like as a team, did we all step back?
Yeah, well, for you individually, did you feel like you had to almost be like, man, I can't handle this, but I still have to put the team first?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's times like when you're like going to go compete and there you have so much going on. Like I would be, before a competition thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to go home and I gotta clean my room and do my laundry and do this homework and do this and whatever, right? But you have to push it aside because you're not there to think about that. You're there to perform and do well. So it's definitely hard to figure out how to push that aside. And I don't know if I ever really even mastered that, but I tried. So
Hey, that's all that matters, right?
yeah.
I mean, it's I always look at gymnastics as an interesting one, and because like when I think of it, before like prior to watching it throughout my marriage, and because my wife has always made me watch it, and now obviously I enjoy it, but I always thought it was an individual team, but it's crazy to know that you still have to have those pressures because you really are more about a team as a collegiate, which is was it always like that in the youth level too, or is it only in the college level? I felt like that.
Yeah, no, more in youth, like, yes, you're competing as a team, but it's more individual. That's where you're trying to prove yourself. You're trying to show, like, college coaches and judges and everyone else, like, in the crowds that, like, you're a good gymnast. Whereas in college, like, yes, you're still trying to prove that, but it's more like, okay, how can I do the best routine for my team so that we get the highest score? So
Okay.
it's way more team in college than it is in JO.
They're so crazy. Now, I guess from your standpoint, when you, as an athlete, do you always feel like you were more supported, or do you almost feel like you were misunderstood in the community?
I think on some things it was harder because I wasn't like, I guess I just like certain things like through my coaches and everything I felt supported, but um with some things just being like there's very stereotypical gymnasts and I just am not that. So for me it was like it was harder, but it was also really cool because I was like I'm more unique than most. So that was nice.
That's kind of cool. Did that almost motivate you sometimes? As like, man, I'm different than the others, so I'm gonna allow this to make me stand out more.
Yeah, like a girl can get a 10 on a beam routine who isn't as graceful as me, but if I'm super graceful, I'm not getting a 10. Like I'm at least giving it like my own kind of like flair to the routine, which I think was really cool for me.
I mean, it was definitely awesome to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a topic I've always thought was kind of fascinating because you look at athletes and they're sometimes that backs against the wall. I'm going to go ahead and be motivated by spite or being different or setting myself aside. Then there's the
Yeah.
other ones that are like, I'm taking on from the crowd or the money or the whatever it is. It sounds like you're more taking it on for yourself, which is more intrinsically motivated, which I think that's the more important way in the long run, at least from like a provider, a fan, and a former athlete.
Yeah, for sure.
What about finding, like, from a standpoint of it socially, finding time to be able to connect with non-athletes? I mean, it's for me, I got to see both sides of it, so this was cool. But I guess for you, you were an athlete the whole time. Obviously, you're connecting with others now that aren't athletes, but was it almost hard being able to connect with other people on campuses
Like other campuses or Clemson?
at Clemson or Utah State?
Oh. Yeah, so I think the easiest connections was like people in my class. Like that was probably like the only things I really like. Other than that, I didn't do much on the campus, like any of the events that they held and stuff like that. Because I mean, I never had time. So like my biggest thing was just like whoever was in class with me is to who I met and who I knew. But And my major was so small that it was basically the same people every year. So
I remember those days
yeah,
very well.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean mine it was interesting because like when I remember when I was playing ball, I really only saw athletes and my roommates. Then when I was done, I was almost like the outside link to those people that were still playing, but I wasn't on the team anymore. And then I lived with golfers, so I was always around people in the athletic department, even when I was done.
yeah,
But it was interesting because like athletes don't really get to associate with anybody else unless if they're in their class or they live
yeah.
with them.
No,
Um,
that's like really the only times.
did you ever feel like you were almost robbed by that, or did it not really affect you since you didn't really have that desire?
And it didn't really affect me because I mean, the athletics like community is so big, especially at Clemson, that it's just like I was already having a hard time like hanging out with my teammates and athletes. Like, there's no way I would have had more time to like been able to go to more events and like actually become like embodied in the student body. And I wish I did, but everything happens and everything plays out how it's supposed to. So I did what I could.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Now I guess what one thing that's really always been fascinating, especially in a sport like gymnastics, is like the image of being under a microscope. And you already touched on this some before, but obviously gymnastics is heavy image based. Does that, in addition to what you said earlier, almost make you feel like even in your day-to-day life now or when you were on campus, that you're always being watched?
yeah. I mean, gymnastics is a very judgmental sport. That's the whole thing. Is you're getting judged on basically what you look like. So that was definitely hard, especially when you have the like most gymnasts looking a certain way. It was definitely hard. I don't feel like I was really looked at like outside of the sport, but it was more just like in the sport, you're in the spotlight all the time. And that was probably the hardest like bit of being a gymnast was having those amount of eyes on you and like, okay, am I fitting the standard? Like, am I good enough? Do I like, am I perfect? You know, like that kind of stuff. So it does get to you for sure.
Probably almost gives you like, I guess, tougher skin now, right? Or you, for me, I probably wasn't used to being judged quite as much. You're already used to it. You've already been there, done that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's not fun, but like I'm better at it.
You get used to it, I guess.
Yeah,
Doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, right?
exactly.
What about with social media? I mean, obviously, for your standpoint, you've seen it from being like virtually an influencer,
Hmm.
lots of followers. I have no idea what that's like. Um, at
Me
all.
either, really.
But hey, at least you're getting recognized though now.
Yeah.
But how does that affect the pressure of being an athlete even more, in your opinion, whether it's for you or people that you may know?
Yeah, I think it was more, it definitely does, right? Because if you have more people's eyes on you, and like this year I was injured a lot, and like that has never been my reality. So for me to not be competing every meet was scary because I'm like, all right, I have all these, like, I have new eyes on me now, and like, I'm not competing. And that was like, it was harder, but it was also like, if I did go up and compete, like I wouldn't have done well, and then I would have felt even worse for the team. So it was more of just like, how can I be a better teammate?
That's got to be a gotta imagine that's super tough.
Yeah, it definitely is hard, but you know, you're on a team for a reason. Everybody's got each other's back. So
Yeah, I love that. What about, I guess, the being almost like you obviously, in my interaction with you, you obviously clearly care about being a role model and being a support for other people. Did that almost affect like your self-worth and how, like, did it almost feel like you're under a microscope because of that too?
um, I think yeah, a little bit more because if you're preaching, like if you're saying what you're preaching, you better be showing it too. So it's like if I'm a huge mental health advocate, right? And so if I'm having a bad day, and like I wouldn't show it at first, but now if I'm having a bad day, I'm gonna show it because it's okay to have bad days.
Oh,
So
100%.
yeah, it was harder to like kind of be more vulnerable, I guess.
Yeah, I imagine that was almost took like a process. Well, I guess the good news is, I mean, I know seeing you this past weekend, you clearly are a role model, so you're doing well with
Thank you.
that. Um, I won't tell that story now, but how did you stay grounded through your success? Because you clearly have had a lot of it between all ACC, between the followers, between just even just obviously you are a role model to girls, but how did you stay so humble in that moment?
It was, I don't think I've ever actually even thought about that because I've never really thought about like I've just always been myself, one. And two, half of like my successes and like, yes, I have so many accolades, especially with gymnastics, and that's incredible, but it was always like, what can I do better? So it was never like, I never took that moment. It was like, oh my gosh, like, guess what I did, you know? It was like, okay, that's cool, but like, what can I do now to like do even better? Um, but yeah, I guess I've never really thought about that.
It's almost like I wish we could teach that to everyone so they don't really think of it as
Yeah.
you clearly are doing it for the right reasons, which is kind of cool to see. I mean, I wish all my athletes would see that themselves. Um, what about like if you could change one narrative for female athletes? I mean, I feel like female athletes don't typically get quite the credit male athletes do, which is a whole different topic that we don't probably shouldn't delve into. But how would you flip that script and what would you change that narrative for them?
I would honestly say like don't when I was a kid I had so many people tell me what I couldn't do. And I would just say like just don't listen to people who tell you what you can't do. Like I was told I would probably never go D1. I went D1 and I had a great career. Right? So it's like just don't listen to what other people say, you know, trust yourself, work as hard as you can, and wherever you end up is where you're meant to be.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's and I feel like that hits right into the mindset of an athlete that like it's almost like that Mamba mentality or that story I was telling about my fighter a couple weeks ago, which is
Yeah.
kind of backs against the wall. Um,
Yeah.
Now, I guess, do you ever feel like you're not doing enough? Obviously, you're clearly intrinsically motivated, which that's not my specialty, but I'm just fascinated by it in many ways, just because I'm a nerd about those things. But um, do you feel like because athletic, sometimes you're not necessarily doing enough?
I think I always felt like I didn't do enough. Even if I did so much, I didn't feel like I ever did enough because I was like, it was probably just I wanted to be I just always wanted to be better. I always wanted to do more. And then also like you get older, your body can't do as much. So it's like I want to do more, but I know if I do more, I'm gonna get even more injured than I already am. So kind of taking a step back on that. So it was hard because there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. Um, so I definitely did feel like at times that I wasn't doing enough, but I did know that I was doing everything I could.
Yeah, I mean, I got to imagine that's a huge thing to try to get used to. I mean, it's interesting you say that because that's when I typically see my athletes get hurt anyway, and that's also adding to pressures, which I know we're not talking as much about injuries, but it's interesting that you were able to actually like figure that out. Were you able to figure it out early, or was it kind of just by the end of your career?
Yeah, no, that took me a while. For sure. Took me a while.
Um, what about having like? So I know we touched on some last time with mental health breaks, but did you ever feel guilty for almost having to take that time to yourself once you did figure that out?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely hard, but like especially at the beginning, I felt so bad from like missing practices and stuff like that. And then once I got older, I realized like, you know, sometimes you just need to take a day, and it's okay. But when I was, you know, a freshman in college, I was taking a lot of days, and I felt so guilty for it. But I was also going through like a ton of stuff, and my coaches were supportive, but it was just I felt like so bad because I was taking so many days. But I
I feel
think
like
I
we need.
learned later in life, like when I realized that I didn't take a day, it was like not a great day. And I was like, you know what? I might as well have just taken the day because then I wouldn't have done like a bad practice today.
I think we need to change the name of this podcast to Life Lessons with Kylan.
I like that.
Yeah. What about the pressures for you? Like, were you most, I mean, I'm hearing this and assuming you're more internally motivated, but do you feel like you put pressure internally or is it more externally, whether it was coaches, teammates?
Always, always internal pressure. There's actually barely any external pressure, especially when it came to me in gymnastics. It was all internal for me, which was really hard because it was all my own fault. Like all the pressure I was putting on myself was all my own fault. So it was interesting for sure.
I
But I
mean,
learned how to do better.
that's good.
Yeah.
It only gets better as somebody who's the same way. So,
Yeah.
what about does that make it almost hard to even celebrate your successes in the process?
No, I think after you finish that like a routine, you are so relieved. Like you feel like a feather flying through the wind. Like I felt like there was not like there was no worries in the world, and I was done. And then like 5 minutes later, it was like, oh, okay, But like for those 5 minutes after the routine, as long as you did well, it was great.
I definitely know what that feels like. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, so the next, I guess, switching gears to like support systems and some of the things that you kind of just briefly touched on, and I luckily got to kind of briefly meet your family and saw how probably awesome your system is. But did you have that one person that you almost use as like your getaway? I mean, I know for me, I always had a training partner. I always
Mhm.
had my mom, my brother, other people, but I won't make my sisters mad, but of course. But was there somebody for you that really helped with that?
I don't know if there was really one person. I had like a whole village. I got so lucky and I had like a really big village. And I don't think it was really ever just one person. I had so many people in my corner, which was very nice.
I mean, I'm still convinced that you probably had the best turnout all day from the event.
That was Saturday.
Do
Maybe.
you? We should go try to find out and take polls.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you almost feel like you keep your circle small because of that, or do you feel like because you have a village, it doesn't really affect you?
No, I think I definitely keep my circle small. Like I'm very hesitant to new friends, and like obviously being on a team, you have 20 new friends. Um, so like in that aspect, my village wasn't small, but like in the outside aspect, like I have my three, four best friends, and that's them right there. So
Do you think that was because of all the pressures and success, or do you think it was just that's who you are?
no, I was with that through high school, middle school. I was always like that. I had a very small circle.
And don't worry, I get it. I have had the same best friend since high school.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
what about I guess keeping boundaries? Like, did that take time for you to be able to have to set those boundaries to kind of almost protect yourself? So you did have time for both your mental health and for your sport and school?
Yeah, it was really hard because I had to set boundaries, like, and I didn't even think of them as boundaries at that point. But I was just like, there were so many things that like my friends wanted to do, and my roommates, and I was just like, no, like I can't. And it sucked because I didn't like hang out with them as much as I probably should have, but it was good for me because I needed to take that time for myself. So it was hard to do it for sure, and I don't think I really ever thought about it as boundaries. It was more just like, hey, I can't do this, and I maybe should have thought about it as a boundary, but instead of just always saying no. But
Hey, I mean, it's good to know how to say no. I'm still trying to learn.
yeah.
I had somebody say to me, I think it was actually in like marriage prep when my wife and I were married, where they're basically saying, learn how to say no so you can say yes. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of people don't even know how to do that to start. I guess so from you, from your standpoint, I know we talked about from a female athlete standpoint, but if you could flip the script on what people know about athletes socially and outside of the arena, what would it be that you would really try to change?
I would say, like, I know that people know that athletes have a lot on their plate, but I don't think people really know the extent to it. Like, about really how much they have on their plate. Because you're balancing home, you're balancing school, you're balancing your team, you're balancing the people you know at school, the people you know at home. You're balancing so much that there's like literally not enough hours in a day to do everything that you need to do. So I think just like if you're a parent, if you have athletes in your life and stuff like that, giving them a little more grace, because they are probably handling a ton and they need just for you to kind of maybe take a step back sometimes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's crazy to me. I mean, I think back when, especially as college athletes, it's crazy. But even now, the demands of high school athletes, it's um, might have been more intense in certain ways once upon a time, but it's definitely almost the level of college now. So it's kind of the commitment, which is crazy.
It is. It is. Sports is it's going crazy.
Way of life.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, great. Well, I mean, I've loved hearing your story on this end. I can't wait to touch on life after sports.
Oh, is that
next
our
week.
next one? That'll be exciting. I'm excited for that one. Uh,
But yeah, but thank you for all this.
yes, thank you. All right, well, see you guys next week. Bye.